Hola, ¿qué tal, amigos de Minnesota Latin Radio? Les doy la bienvenida una vez más a Enterate Minnesota. Este día tenemos una invitada muy especial. Quiero que pongan mucha atención porque ella es la primera productora, jornalista y también reportera que ha traído grandes noticias y ha traído la atención a las ciudades gemelas en casos muy particulares y especialmente últimamente como la caída de Minneapolis, The Fall of Minneapolis y otros documentales. So pongan atención. Welcome, Liz Collins. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you, Erica, so much for having me.
I am very honored that you are here. So thank you so much. I don't think the Latino community is very aware of all your work. I've been following you for, I think, more than a year, and I found you, and it's been fascinating. You've been very brave. Can you tell our public about you and how do you start with Alpha News?
Yes.
And all the process, the fall of Minneapolis.
Absolutely. I think you're the brave one, Erica. So yes, I'm happy to be here and so glad we've been able to get to know each other over these last few months and glad this all worked out. But yes, I grew up in Minnesota. So I'm from Minnesota, grew up in Worthington, the very southwest corner of the state. I'll be honest, I had a very early obsession with the news from the time I was a very little girl. I started a newspaper when I was 10 years old with my neighborhood. I started working in radio when I was still in high school and always dreamed of being on the news. In fact, I watched WCCO growing up, the CBS station in Minneapolis, and dreamed of actually working there someday. And that dream came true. Back in 2008, kind of the way it works in TV, you move around, you work in, what they call smaller markets, and landed eventually that dream job at WCCO. But then I left now about 4 years ago for independent media. I work over at Alpha News now, but focusing more on podcasting. We've done a couple documentaries. I put out a book in that time and try to focus on more of those untold stories as we've seen the narrative kind of go one way in the mainstream media. And I was looking for a change and really still clinging to what I hold dear as a journalist, and that is trying to get as close to the truth as possible.
I really appreciated you do that because I think people, and especially in the Latino community, I will tell you, it's just one narrative. It doesn't exist. You can even question them because they will refuse to answer any questions. So people just receive the same left narrative all the time. So when I found you, it's like, oh, this is awesome, because I think people also are waking up now. People start realizing that we've been lied by the media a lot. And especially Minnesota is bringing a lot of attention lately, no for the best, unfortunately, for all this chaos of high crime, the fraud, lower education. So tell me, how do you start with the fall of Minneapolis? It's one of the most popular documentals from Minnesota, right?
Yeah, so I was seeing all of the riots back in May of 2020. That obviously was the entire summer of all the peaceful protesting that we witnessed, right?
Was an apocalypse.
Exactly. But again, I think you're right that more people have been waking up to what has transpired, especially in Minnesota. But I was seeing it through a lens of kind of personally and professionally. Was really bothered on a professional level. How it seemed we really refused to tell the truth about what took place with George Floyd, what took place after, the connections in government, the people, the decisions they were making, the decisions they were not making, and really the fallout that we're all living to this day. And I was bothered by the media not wanting to talk to actually the people that were involved, whether that's the officers that were in the 3rd precinct as they gave up their precinct to the mob that night, whether it was actually the officers that were sent to prison for the incident. It's almost seemed as if nobody cared about their perspective and what took place. And so that was the goal of the fall of Minneapolis, to set the record straight in a way. And we kind of thought, I just knew that I was able to, thankfully many people were trusting me with the story to get it right. And it was a something that I took very, very seriously, and we spent many months putting it all together. Dr. J.C. Shea is the director and writer of the documentary, brilliant and just amazing to work with, but also really cared about getting this right. This wasn't, we've been called a lot of things as a result of the documentary, but I've yet to have anyone really dispute the facts. They try, but it hasn't really worked out for them. But yeah, we thought if we can get 100,000 people to watch this documentary, that'll be amazing. And we've well surpassed 10 million, I think, at this point. 12 or 13 million views on the documentary, because it has been just a reminder that the truth really does still matter, and it does stand a chance. But I really think, particularly in Minnesota, it just changed so much for so many of us. Whether you lived in Minneapolis or you're in outstate Minnesota, but it really also shows the power of lies, and how just dangerous,
the main media,
and
how
devastating
they can manipulate.
Right. Yeah. And I was really just seeing that where I was working at the time, which is why I jumped over into independent media. But I have really, again, been reminded almost on a daily basis since I left how much the truth really does still matter. And many people are, turning to us over at Alpha News, whether it be fraud or crime reporting or politically the environment that we're in, and turning to us because they're trusting us to get it right.
To get it, the truth. And I want actually to remind the people, the documentary is already in Spanish, right?
Yes. So if you actually go to the fallofminneapolis.com, it's all for free. You can see the documentary there for free, thefallofminneapolis.com. And it's just you'll click on the subtitles, and there are Spanish subtitles on the Fall of Minneapolis. So that would be wonderful if your listeners
we're gonna
and viewers
repost it in the radio, and I will post it in my Facebook as well.
That'd be great.
So people can watch it and understand what really happened. And I think, actually many of the Latinos community were victims, because, when the mob burned all these neighborhoods and the police, many of these people who live in those neighborhoods were Latinos. I know a woman who lost her business and nobody did anything about it. For me, I come from Mexico, right? So you see this kind of chaos sometimes in our country, but watching it in the United States and Minnesota was lawless. It's like, what nobody's doing anything. Where is the police? And 3 days, I think it took. And I remember President Trump saying, like, if they don't do it, I'm going to send them. If they don't send the National Guard, I will send them. And was until President Trump stepped in that Governor Walz did something about it.
Yeah, and I think that's well documented now, just how and this is all part of the playbook, which I hope people do realize is they weaponize race in a way. This is Black Lives Matter just completely flourished that summer, and you're right, nobody went back to talk about, sadly, how it seemed Black lives had never mattered less in Minneapolis with the lawlessness that was allowed. These neighbors begging for police to come back.
100%.
They didn't support this defund the police movement that they really shoved down the throats of many people living in Minneapolis, and absolutely heartbreaking to see, because I think it was more than $1 billion in damage, 1,500 businesses either damaged or destroyed. So many of them did not rebuild. There's a reason we called the documentary the Fall of Minneapolis. I would love to do the Rise of Minneapolis. That is a documentary I strive to do someday. But I really think until the truth is told about all of this, I'm just not sure. You see just sort of this desperation almost now to cling to these narratives that facts never supported, or the evidence was not there. And you're right; those are the people that I feel the worst for. They never got a vote in any of this, and their neighborhoods were destroyed and their livelihoods taken from them.
And this defund the police movement, that was like, I think that was kind of excuse. Sometimes I even feel was orchestrated.
Oh yes.
And then casualty. Okay, the death of George Floyd caused all these riots, and then defund the police. Until now, I don't think the crime in Minnesota went super high. They try to do something about it now, but I don't think we are quite there.
Yeah, we had, there were more than or just about 900 police officers at the beginning of May of 2020, and that has dwindled down to about 500. But even of that 500, it's only like 260, 270 who are actually street cops, if you will, that are out there. But also, you've created this culture now where it seems that police departments are more like fire departments.
Right.
That's when they're going in. The proactive policing has been drastically reduced because
Yeah,
your options when you go to work or you can be killed or be sent to prison. I mean, these are
exactly.
not jobs that nobody should have to think like that going to their job each and every day. And my husband, I'm always the first to say, was a longtime Minneapolis police officer, and so certainly we still have friends within the department and whatnot, and get a lot of information that way. But these are men and women who've signed up to serve, and many of the most courageous people I've ever met, and really also devastating to see what has happened to that profession.
That really was a before and after George Floyd, for sure,
Hmm.
in Minnesota, especially.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about the Minnesota versus With the People.
Yeah, and that was kind of what we consider the tragic sequel to the fall of Minneapolis. We're seeing this all happen. Not a documentary we wanted to do, but when I talk about that, the proactive policing, how policies are radically changing, but we lose then 5 first responders in a matter of 13 months in Minnesota.
I remember that.
Something that's never happened before. These are men killed on the job, and there were some in Western Wisconsin. I mean, it was even bigger, a larger issue than the 5 lives cut tragically short. But what took place in Polk County with Deputy Josh Owen. Then we have the terrible shootings that took place in Burnsville that led to the two Burnsville officers and a fire paramedic, Adam Finseth, being killed on the job. And then we have Jamar Mitchell, a Minneapolis police officer, who's going to help a man in the middle of the day, in the middle of the street. And he is shot and killed by the man he is going to help. But this all happens in a very short amount of time. And I really think that, there's a lot to learn from that when they went ahead and demonized law enforcement as an entire profession,
Exactly.
painting, in broad strokes. And, these lives are lost, and, just sort of the political ramifications of lying. I think that it's pretty well documented. We also focus on the case involving Minnesota State Trooper Ryan Laundrigan.
Yes.
Again, another law enforcement officer charged with murder for following his training, and what took place with Ricky Cobb II. So the documentary focuses on all of this, and again gets at the truth of what actually took place.
And that was very fortunate. The Chris Meadow was part of the attorney who was able to help them. I remember that case was very popular.
Yeah, so Chris Maddle is our attorney over at Alpha News too, and we came together in very strange circumstances. But actually, at Alpha News, even with the Trooper Laundrigan case, we were just focused on what is the truth here, because again, you saw the media.
Yes.
They made it all about race. It's all a part of the
100%.
playbook. It's a white officer. It's a black motorist. This is in the headlines.
Yes.
This is what's repeated. What's the actual truth? Did race have anything to do with what took place that night? Of course not. I mean, of course not. And Chris really was wonderful and came out and he said, this war on law enforcement has to end, and it's going to end with this case. And I think it's actually a large reason that we have Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty not running for re-election. She was not successful in her prosecution of Trooper Laundrigan, something she ran on. I mean, who runs on putting, cops in prison? That's literally what she was running on. And we've seen again and again her side with criminals over victims in many, many cases. So Chris and I came together through just reporting of that story. And he kind of happened to mention, if you guys ever need any legal help at Alpha News, I'd be happy to help. And it was 2 days later after that very conversation that we were sued at Alpha News for the fall of Minneapolis and my book. They're lying the media of the left in the death of George Floyd. And he is an absolute wizard
Yes.
at the law and a bulldog. And not only was the case against us dismissed, but the woman who sued us, the assistant police chief of Minneapolis, Katie Blackwell, she was ordered to pay our attorney's fees,
Oh, wow.
also to sign an order that everything the judge said in his ruling, that it was all substantially true, meaning the book and the documentary all substantially true. And you now have a flood of former
Mhm.
and current Minneapolis officers who have accused her of perjury in
Yes.
Derek Chauvin's case, which he is using now for his latest attempt at an appeal. So interesting how the world
Things start
all
playing.
works. But also a part of why I come to you today, I think, with a message of hope, that there is hope. I think we're getting the pendulum is starting to
To
swing, and
start
people are
moving.
waking up.
I think it's one of my missions right now, because after observing, right, like I'm a person who have friends in Mexico and in other parts. I always like to make my own research. I don't take what I hear for the main
Hmm.
media.
Hmm.
I don't just accept it. I go and do my own research. So I start seeing the change in people. I think now the all the fraud, the Minnesota is getting attention for all the
Hmm.
billions of dollars in fraud. The all the crime. I think in a month or something, so many cars were broken. The education quality being declined. The children at fourth grade cannot even read or write.
Right.
Um, all of this has been accumulating to see, okay, we have a problem in Minnesota. And I think it's being kind of like a mafia because everybody's trying to cover it in the administration, the leadership, or if we can call leadership. Everybody being covered each other. We have a attorney general who never really do anything about the fraud. Uh, I know people complaining about the fraud with Governor Walz, and he ignored it. Or even people say he retaliate for people who want to say something. So I am so glad that finally things start coming out and see the or leadership or administration really has done a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and that was really the goal behind even the book. They're lying. I put this out in October of 2022, so this was right before the election, the re-election of Walz and Ellison. We just did a ton of research about these two, their backgrounds, their questionable judgment. I think that's fair to call it. It was sort of my warning, like I didn't really know how to, at that point, we weren't doing videos, or there wasn't like an infrastructure that was in place at the time to do really a video. So this was in a book form, but it was kind of like, we need to get this out before the election, because
Yes.
we have some people here that I there's some bad things in their past, and I think people, they automatically point you as a conspiracy theorist. And
Yes.
but it is interesting how that evidence has really been, as more months and years have passed, how that has continued to stack on. I'm kind of curious because I'm used to, the news is, it's always constant, but this fraud situation certainly been in the news for years,
Hmm.
with Feeding Our Future. And we've had the autism fraud, daycare fraud,
Housing,
yeah,
stabilization. Yeah.
these social programs that have really been rated. But just the timing, is it that they're trying to knock Governor Walz out before he has a chance to really run here for reelection? Or are they swapping him out? I never, I always just think that there's always a reason behind the timing of a lot of these things, because again, he was the VP pick not that
Yeah.
long ago, and these stories were all there, but it was interesting what they were focusing on at that time. But again, as people are searching, I think, for more truth, it's good for independent journalism, because you're just not finding it on the other stations. I always say that the news has now turned into, it's the same story told the same way in the same order, and hey, here's weather in sports. I
Yeah.
just give Minnesotans more credit than that. We're critical thinkers. You want to hear from other sides, and you also have kind of this crop of younger reporters who really do, I think it's sad to me.
Yeah.
They see the world through a radically different lens than when I
Right.
was growing up. I mean, they grow up with a lot of this in the classroom, lessons that I never, really learned. I never was, indoctrinated in school.
Exactly. We've
I
been
just didn't. So,
indoctrinated.
it's really hard to try to look to these people, I think, to get the truth and I really realized a lot of that through the riots, that there was kind of this chorus. I felt like even as reporters that they were cheering this lawlessness and supporting this in a way.
It's
And I was just so taken aback that I just can't, like, how can two people look at the exact same thing and see two things that are so
different. Yeah.
radically different? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Like you say, they use the race card a lot.
yeah,
In the case of George Floyd, that was like a permission to destroy the city,
yeah,
because according to them, they were doing justice because an African American male died, right? But we have the example Charlie Kirk.
right.
Nobody have a press conference about it. I don't see Amy Klobuchar go and talk about it,
No.
or Tina Smith, or any of
No.
them. We saw this lady from Ukraine be killed from a black man in the train in North Carolina, and nobody say anything. And the same as with the Latino community. It is a reason why many Latinos vote for Donald Trump this time, because they probably don't dare to be vocal about it, but secretly they agree, and they check their head, but then secretly go and vote Republican or more conservative,
Right.
because people who've been here a long time, and been working hard and paying taxes and have the children here, they saw out of the sun, open border, who a lot of people, newcomers, have everything for free. Before Biden, none of the immigrants qualify for any federal assistance or any program. You children, if they born here, they will qualify, but any immigrant who doesn't have any documentation, they won't. Biden come and start giving everything for free, open the border. We have like 2,000 terrorists less, more than 3,000 children lost, just unaccompanied, a lot of fentanyl coming, guns, sex trafficking, human trafficking, child exploitation. And I think the first victims of that were the own Latinos or the own immigrants who were here before Biden. Right. And it's why they go secretly and vote for Republicans.
No, I agree completely, Erica. It was so eye-opening. We actually went at Alpha News to the border for a couple days and documented what was going on. And I actually came back, and even my friends and family, I was kind of like in shock for a couple days, because I was like, this is a planned invasion. This is not an organic. And I was just trying to explain it, but I'm like, unless you see it, I mean, you saw all the articles of clothing, you saw these little children coming over. In many cases, they were not with anyone. And so we were out with Border Patrol when they were still allowing those interviews. They shut those down very quickly after. So we were lucky to actually even capture what we did on camera. Yeah. But this was a humanitarian crisis that 100%. Was created. This isn't us being these great neighbors and taking what these people went through to get here. And I was just completely appalled. And we tried to document some of those stories. People dying on their way here. There were mass graves that we captured. There were rape trees that we were, and I mean, honestly, I still look back going like, this was, one of the biggest stories of probably my lifetime. And we're the only news crew to even go cover it, as kind of a warning that, and then I'll just say with this fraud, we've been checking out so much of this over at Alpha News. And again, when you see this for yourself, it's clear to see what's going on and how they use your emotions and manipulate all of this. And that's not reality. But we've been going to all these businesses, whether it's adult daycares, a business that nobody had even heard of before, or autism centers, some medical clinics, but they're all fake. I mean, literally yesterday,
fake, yeah.
we had a list of more than 20 of these businesses, just random tips that we've received. We did not go to one that did not seem in some way, shape, or form fake. And you can go to a website, you check it out very easily. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of our tax dollars going to these places. They have luxury cars in the parking lot. There's no kids there. There's no adults there. And this has just all been allowed. And it seems like, okay, we have the same people in charge the entire time. So how does nobody know about this? I'm really having a hard time, accepting that narrative. And also the people that do have access, that's what's interesting, is we've just been cut off completely at Alpha News, by Attorney General Ellison and the governor in particular. They will not answer our questions. But the people who do have access aren't even asking questions that are really relevant to what's going on.
They will not challenge them.
No, not at all. No, it's almost like they just encourage this chaos.
They actually protect them. And like you say, people has been very manipulated, like especially like now with ICE, for example. Obviously, it's heartbreaking to see families being separated, but people should know that if the mayor, the state police cooperate with ICE and take the criminals and give it to ICE directly, ICE don't have to come to our neighbors or stores to find them. And then for collateral damage, actually take people who are innocent. We saw this with Barack Obama. See, Barack Obama did it. Nobody say nothing.
Yeah.
They don't have the same narrative back then, right? In fact, it's for another day, but literally Barack Obama caused a lot of damage for the Latino community. But like now, people of course feel compassion and sadness to see, okay, how this is happening. And of course, the main media say, oh, he's a racist. Republicans are racist and they like to separate families and they are cruel. But they never say, okay, first of all, they create this crisis. And then when someone have to come and try to fix the crisis, they will complain.
Yeah, I'll just say with these ICE operations, I was able to ride along with the ICE officers not very long ago here in town. And just what they're up against, you have 87 counties in Minnesota, 7 of them cooperate with ICE. That's it. Meaning that if someone who is here illegally is arrested for another crime, they're taken to a jail. That jail will then contact ICE. ICE will just pick them up at the jail.
Right.
Only 7 counties in Minnesota do that. Of course, the most populous counties, Ramsey and Hennepin, of course, do not. And instead, you're creating this chaos in neighborhoods, at workplaces. This can easily be fixed, and it is in many red states where the leadership is different. And in fact, just talking to these ICE officers, it was so eye-opening. They were talking about what it's like in Iowa or what it's like in Indiana. And really, they're dedicated. They want to get the worst of the worst out of here. And I don't know why we've politicized. We've politicized things that I just didn't even know were political. Public safety, to me, everybody wants to be safe, don't they?
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point of that's what freedom means in America, right? To be safe. And also just to. I mean, you're out there blowing whistles and, marching in the streets to keep a domestic abuser in his home in St. Paul. What has happened to the universe? I don't understand.
It's really shocking because you even see people burning the American flag.
Yeah.
If you go to Mexico and burn a Mexican flag, you'll be dead in a second. People will not tolerate. Even their own civils don't tolerate that. Why Americans have to tolerate that? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So and I want to be clear, it's a lot of immigrants who, even if they don't have documents, are very good hard workers. They've been here for a long time. I know people, Liz, who are owners of business. They own paint companies, roofing companies, restaurants, hair salons, who pay tons of taxes, and they've been waiting for an opportunity to become residents or citizens of America. They've been proven themselves being a good residents, right? A good community members. They are waiting, and out of the sun, come these people from Venezuela. They were in jail, and they just given everything free, hotel free.
Right.
That's why it's like a betrayal to people. Maybe they cross the border, but at the end of the day, they try to prove to be hard workers and good people, waiting for an opportunity. Out of the sun, it's a slap in the face. For people who just come across, and who cares if you were a criminal? Here is everything for free.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, I'm sure you see it as well, but you can see the comments on a lot of these, just even the way a headline is phrased by the mainstream media in town. The Star Tribune, I think it was yesterday, put out something like, here's the website to go to track ICE movements. Like, what? But you can see in the comments, people have had it. They're like, first of all, they I think recognize that this doesn't have to be this way. This chaos doesn't have to be created. The policies just need to be changed. But again, you're right. Instead of Walls and Ellison even supporting law enforcement, or frankly doing it seems almost anything to support what the most people in Minnesota want, they are instead spending their days just fighting President Trump at every single turn.
It's not even a policy they have. It's just wherever Trump
do the opposite,
do the
fight
opposite.
them. And that's also where a lot of our tax dollars are going
to
this ongoing litigation. That just seems like such a waste of time when we have real problems in Minnesota to be solving.
Yeah, I think we need literally a new leader, a new administration, and all Minnesota to kind of turn this around. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's any chance that we're going to recover any of this route money?
Well, I mean, even getting at the total is really quite something, right? I mean, so first they were like, okay, maybe it's $1 billion, and people were like, oh my gosh, $1 billion. Now, I mean, they've said $8 billion, and we're like, $8 billion. Wow. And now I've heard it's much higher than than that, and even that. So the answer, I think, Erica, is no. We're not going to recover that. But also, I think the conversation that needs to be had is really just how much value we've also lost. Think about how many people have left the state, and these are high earners that have left the state, or job opportunities that have left the state, businesses that have decided not to set up here, seeing these consistently bad headlines for Minnesota. So what does that loss really look like? Can you even measure that now? Was that 5 years from now? Was that 10 years from now? And that's what's really devastating. Just growing up and being from here. How radically that things have changed in a very short amount of time. I'm not talking about a couple decades or anything, but just 5, 6, 7 years.
It will take some time to the repair.
Yeah.
What do you think will help to have more unity in Minnesota and to have less corruption?
Yeah,
because the corruption is so obvious. It's hard to defend the amount of corruption you have in Minnesota. Like, it's just no way.
Yeah, I think the truth, I think, is our friend. The old saying, right? That the truth will set you free. I firmly do believe that. But also, I think people, and I am a Minnesotan, so I feel like I can throw us all completely under the bus.
Sure.
But but sometimes we're a people that we don't speak up, or we think somebody else will speak up. I just think, you look at like the East Coast, for example. I spent many years there as a reporter. They are just they're filling city council meetings. They're speaking up. They're pushing back. Here it's like, are you gonna say so? They're just the whole we can't be cowards. We can't be cowards, and especially people who are in political offices. They have to speak up. You're seeing a lot of that now, which I think is great. They have to push back. But also, I think just to engage in these conversations, because I think when you start talking to people, again, we all really kind of want, I think, similar things. Or you can also have these conversations and present people with facts. Facts are on our side, if you will. Have them, have people watch The Fall of Minneapolis, and then talk about it, afterward. And you also can just think for yourself, present yourself with information, but be able to think for yourself. I just think all of that is important, because I can't tell you how many emails, comments I've seen or received from The Fall of Minneapolis saying, gosh, if I was presented with this information, if I would have known this,
isn't it?
I would have thought differently. Many people who voted differently after watching the
100%.
Documentary, saying like, I just didn't know this was this demonic, or this, pre-planned on the other side. This is, scarier than anything I ever thought. And, all these things that we take for granted in this great country, we really have to be careful, because in many ways we've seen a lot of that slipping away in Minnesota.
100%. And I think with next year coming up, some elections, middle terms, I think it's important to start having these conversations more and more and more.
Right.
Hopefully people get to see your documentals, both of them. Are you working in any other documental?
Yes, I am. I'll come back and talk about it.
Oh,
yes,
please,
I am. This one is really like, wow. Yeah. I'm frankly, I wish we didn't have so much material. I dream of better and brighter days, but I think I gotta always follow that voice inside of me. Faith is important to me, and um, I know the Lord just keeps pushing me forward for a reason. So I'm really dedicated to uncovering as much of the
The
truth
truth.
as I can, and so more
Well,
truth coming your
please.
way. I think in the next couple months.
Oh,
So
please keep us informed. We
yes,
want to have you back as soon as you want to tell us. And
yeah,
it's very surprising because even some of my friends who were very Democrats or left, um, they were like, "This is crazy. This is crazy." So I
yeah,
think people is
yeah.
getting more brave and kind of stand up for the truth. And I really admire you because it can be scary. With people like Melissa
Yeah.
Hartman, being
Yeah.
killed. And sometimes I even notice when we have this conversation, some people kind of twist their eyes when they see me or something. They stop talking to me. But I think in the end of the day, like you said, the truth will make us free. It's a
Mhm.
great scripture. I think is that's
Y-
what we need to stand for, the truth.
Right. And I never even would know before just people's political leanings, or it was never really important
It
to me. I
never
was
is,
never a
madam.
political person. I mean, frankly, as a journalist for 20 plus years, I'm used to, okay, there's this side and then there's this side, and I really felt really strongly about that. But it's become so masked in this way that this propaganda is just dripping with
Yeah, yeah.
and that has really been a concern of mine. And we've grown over at Alpha News. I think there was like 1.5 people, I always say, when I first started over there. And we have six of us now, but we're right there with the Star Tribune every day, like the number of visits on our website.
Wow.
We have more Facebook followers, I think, than the Star Tribune
Oh
does.
yeah,
And
100%.
more engagement on all of our social media and websites. But again, I think that really is just because people want
The truth.
the truth. And so please, share our content on Alpha
Yes.
News, start these
Please sign
conversations.
to
And
subscribe,
yes,
share,
everything, it's all
like.
free. Yep. We beg for money. We're a nonprofit, so we
Yeah,
always
of
ask for
course.
donations. But you don't have to give us any. But our content is all free. I know that's really important to us.
Well, thank you so much, Liz, for your time. I hope you can come back soon.
Absolutely.
And I,
Yes.
I love to have you. I admire you, really. Besides, you are very
Thank you.
beautiful.
Oh, Steph.
It's like,
Right back at
she's
you,
so
Erica.
smart,
Oh,
and you are so
yeah.
smart and so brave. So we are very, very blessed to have you here in Minnesota. So thank you again.
Thank you. Pleasure's all
Have a
mine.
good day, everyone. ¿Cómo estuvo?